some students who cannot be here today, so they asked me to record it and make it available for them. So thank you, Aidan. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
All right. All right. So thanks for Dr. Lee. First of all, let me come here and speak and talk to you guys a little bit about Catalent. So I mean, initially, I'll give you kind of an overview of QC, overview of what our department kind of does. So QC right now is about 170 employees, going up to around probably 250, 260. So another probably 80 to 100 people that we're going to be adding with open head count. So obviously a lot of growth at the site. I'm sure everybody's seen the news and just seen some of the publicity that Catalent's got, which is great. So there's tons of growth here. So QC, quality control, it's a lot of different things, right? So obviously that's a large group. So I'll start with incoming quality control. So that's typically those positions are down right by the dock. That is our incoming quality control unit. So as soon as materials come in, whether it's kind of a material that's going to be used in a batch like sodium chloride, or it's a component such as like stoppers, or if it's like a bulk drug substance that we're going to fill at the site. That team gets those materials and then they do a sampling. So they take it into a suite and they sample a certain sample, whatever. It's dictated by what we call a material specification sheet on how much, and then where the samples go. So some of the samples come up to the QC lab for testing. Some of the samples get sent out to third-party contractors. And then that's all dictated by that material specification sheet. So so that's kind of the first contact that QC kind of gets involved. And then the next phase of that is a raw material testing team. So the samples that incoming QC takes, some of them get sent up to the lab internally, and they do a lot of testing. So that testing for raw material is mainly compendial based. So there are multiple different compendias all around the world. So the main one for us is the USP, so US Pharmacopoeia. There's also one in Europe called the EP. There's one in Japan called the JP. And so it really just depends on where the drug is going to be marketed on what testing is to occur. So most of that testing is wet chemistry type testing. So you're talking titrations, color change tests, things like that. So it's directed by the different compendias. And then the next two, I guess, phases is after the batch is manufactured, we do certain testing. So there is a microbiology department. So they mainly do 3 tests, right? So they do endotoxin, bioburden, and sterility. So so it sounds simple because there's only 3 tests, right, that they routinely do. But first of all, there's a ton of samples that they do these on. So they get probably more samples than any other group in QC. And they're really just looking for microbial contamination is what they're looking for. So I'll talk about the chemistry part in a minute, but I will say the microbiology, that is highly scrutinized by regulators, much more so than raw material testing or chemistry testing. So when we have a regulatory audit, our microbiology team is involved every single time. So my background's more chemistry. So I've kind of got lucky throughout the years and have not necessarily had to be involved as much as our microbiology team. So, and then the chemistry team. So that team does probably the widest range of testing. So we do a lot of chromatography, so HPLC, high performance liquid chromatography. We do tons of that type of testing. And then we have quite a few bioanalytical techniques as well. So we have capillary electrophoresis, which is similar to chromatography in that you still get a kind of a chromatograph to look at. It's just called an electropherogram. And they also do quite a few ELISAs. There's a couple different types of ELISAs. Mostly they do impurity ELISAs for drug substance, where they're looking for either protein A or CHO cells, or even insulin, you know, and it's just a limit test. So there shouldn't be any of those things in there at the end of the process. And then the other type of ELISA is a potency ELISA. So that is looking for the biological activity of a drug. And then there's also quite a few compendial tests that they perform in the chemistry lab. They do particulate matter, just looking for particles of different size. They do pH, osmolality, density, appearance, you know, quite a few tests like that as well. So the chemistry and micro team for release, they work really close together to kind of put the certificate of analysis together, and then we turn that into QA, and then the batch can be released as long as everything met specification and things like that. So, and then there's a couple support groups within QC as well. We have a LIMS team. That's our computer system that samples are tracked in and results go into. We have a method transfer team. So that team is typically our higher level scientists, have quite a few years of experience in the industry. They're involved anytime we get a new project in. So they have to make sure methods work in our laboratory, you know, just as they did when they were developed in a client's lab, or, you know, wherever the test was initially performed. And then we also have a metrology team. That's the team that takes care of our instruments. They take care of preventative maintenance, calibrations, you know, fix our instruments when they break, things like that. So obviously a lot of different moving pieces in QC, you know, but overall, I mean, it's a, you know, very, very, very important group to be a part of. It's definitely, I would say, a high pressure group, because after the batch is manufactured, you know, everyone's waiting on QC to get their testing done, right, before they can release the batch. So definitely a lot of pressure on the back end. But I mean, that's why we have the great scientists that we have. So, and then, I mean, I'll talk to you a little bit about like my journey, and I guess kind of how I got to where I'm at now. So I've been here 9 years. I've kind of been all over the place, to be honest. So I started as a chemist in the lab, doing testing, you know, for the release team, and mainly HPLC is my main background. And then after being here a couple of years, I got moved to supervisor over the release team for chemistry. So I managed that work, scheduled that work, and things like that. And then next I made a lateral move to supervise the method transfer team. You know, that was something that was really, for me, stepping outside my comfort zone, like not something that I had a huge background in. But I knew from a career standpoint, it was very beneficial for me to learn that, and you know, be able to talk to clients about it, be able to talk to regulators about it. So that was for me, that was kind of a strategic move, and a challenge. Like, I really like challenges. So that was a good move for me career-wise. Then after that, I got moved into a manager role, essentially the release team and the method transfer team. So similar roles that I'd done before, just in a different management capacity. And then in January, I got the opportunity to move into a director role. So again, just kind of expanding my responsibilities over raw materials and micro. So, I mean, you know, it's definitely been a long journey. You know, it's been a very, very rewarding journey. Catalent's been great to me, obviously, but, you know, but I mean, I wanted to cover that just to kind of give you guys some insight onto, you know, it's definitely very possible to get from, you know, kind of a bench chemist aspect, you know, all the way up through the management track, if that's what you want to do. We also have another track. So there's also a scientist track, where people move up the chain from a scientist perspective. So They go, you know, from associate scientists, senior scientists, principal scientists. So there's definitely a lot of individuals that have kind of moved through that track as well. You know, especially if they think managing people is not necessarily for them. So, so there's definitely two different tracks. You know, they're definitely different in responsibilities. You know, but like monetarily at the end of the day, I mean, it's, you know, fairly similar. So, I mean, you're not losing anything if you go management track versus scientist. It's just a different path. You know, not everyone is necessarily cut out to manage people, because I mean that's a whole different ballgame, to be honest. And then I mean, as far as, you know, what QC does is obviously important, but I mean, from a patient impact standpoint, you know, we're making sure the drugs are safe, you know, for market. You know, we obviously have commercial products, which obviously go into people. Oh, I need a drink. But especially like the microbiology testing that I mentioned earlier, right? So one of the main tests there is sterility. You know, obviously a drug has to be sterile before it goes to the market. If a microbiology test is not sterile, I mean, it will absolutely kill someone. You know, it's not you know, there's no games there. From a chemistry standpoint, if the potency is off just a little bit, you know, it's most likely not going to hurt anyone, but I mean, still a really bad thing. But there's definitely huge quality and patient impact to making sure we do our jobs right in QC. You know, so we're kind of that last line of defense before release. So definitely very rewarding, you know, when you think about it from that standpoint. And then I guess as far as like what I look for on resumes and, you know, what I look for in candidates. So obviously I look at the resume to make sure, you know, they have the minimum qualifications for the role, things like that. But honestly, I like to, from an interview standpoint, I really like to just sit down and have a conversation with people, right? And try to read people a little bit. You know, I want people that are going to be hardworking, and people that are going to be able to handle change, because this place changes a lot. And really, like, resiliency is something that I'm really, really big on. You know, you got to be able to handle change and handle it well with a positive attitude. You know, you got to be able to switch priorities quickly. You know, again, kind of with that positive attitude. You know, and really just, I'm looking for those people that I think will put extra effort, you know, to, you know, maybe come in on a weekend if something's really urgent, or stay late to get something done, you know. And I mean, obviously we try not to ask people to do that as much as possible, but I mean, it's something that absolutely comes up. And the whole reason for that is because there are patients at the end of the day that are waiting for our medicine. I mean, we have a situation right now for one of our commercial products there where they're on a stockout situation. So every day is critical. As far as, there are some days that go by where, you know, there's no drug on the market. So obviously very, very impactful from that standpoint. And then kind of the last thing I wanted to cover, I mean, I wanted to let this group know specifically. So there are a couple people that have come out of the this Ivy Tech program that are very, very high performers within the group. So I have one person who is a supervisor over our outsource group. So that's the group that sends samples out for testing to contract labs, meets with contract labs routinely to follow up on results, things like that. And that person actually just got promoted to senior supervisor. So, I mean, she's a fantastic employee, you know, very, very positive. She has lots of energy. So that person's been a fantastic hire, you know, that came out of this program. And then I have another supervisor that started in the lab at Catalent. We're actually Cook when we were Cook. And they are a supervisor now over our Building C project, which is the new viral line for the highly publicized, like, J&J, you know, contract that, you know, that was all over the news, and, you know, especially for Indiana news. But so that supervisor is over that building and getting it up and going, and is just doing a fantastic job. So, so I mean, it's definitely possible to, you know, to be in management, you know, with coming out of this program. I mean, I have two people that are high performers, that came out of this program. So, I mean, I have lots of respect for the program in general. And, I've seen the benefits of the program, personally. So, I mean, I'm really happy to be involved, here. I just wanted to give you guys some insight, into the possibilities and just kind of what QC is all about. Any questions you guys can think of since I rambled for like 15 minutes?
I have one. I actually just started in the micro lab at my job. So I was wondering, like, if I were to transfer over there, if you guys require so much lab experience ahead of time before transferring, like 2 years or 1 year lab experience.
It just depends on it depends on the title, really. I mean, there are definitely entry-level positions that require like 0 to 2 years. And then I think the next level up is like 2 to 5 years. So, I mean, like, if you have a couple years, or at least you're close to the 2 year mark, then, I mean, there's definitely a spot for you here, so.
And then what would a starter salary look like?
I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, our recruiting team they don't tell me as much as I wish they would, but, is that something you want to answer?
I'm not used to Zoom. I was like trying to find the button. So salaries, they definitely vary depending on experience. So what we like to do is the recruiter, if you apply, the recruiter's going to reach out to you. They're going to do a screen with you. They're going to ask you a bunch of questions. I always tell candidates, be prepared on that first call to discuss salary. And we're going to come at it from an angle where we're asking you what you're looking for. I do know from whisperings and talking to different candidates that we do pay on the higher scale in the area for Bloomington. So I don't know 100% what Will's positions are paying entry level because I only cover a certain department, but it's definitely something that the recruiter can chat with you about. We don't give that full range. We never give that full range to anybody, but we will tell you what entry level for that ladder will start at.
Okay.
I know that was really vague. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's the same way.
That's why I threw that to HR.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta know my limitations.
So what would be the best way for Ivy Tech students to reach? Do they reach out to recruiters, or do they apply and then the recruiters reach out to us, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you guys have a little bit of an advantage.
Yes.
Dr. Lee has my email, so that's probably not a good thing. But I mean, I would just I would look on the website, see what jobs are out there, apply for anything that you think you might be a good fit for, and then I mean, for you guys, I mean, I would also contact Dr. Lee because I know he's not shy about reaching out,
Nope.
kind of getting resumes in front of me or whoever else. So you guys have a little bit of an in, which is a big benefit. I mean, I wish I had that when I was coming out of school, but so yeah, I would do both of those things.
And do you guys know which departments are? I mean, I guess probably the answer is all of departments, but which departments will be looking for potential Ivy Tech students to join their group?
Probably all of them. I know that this morning I just sat in a meeting and they were talking about, the projected numbers that we're looking to hire in the next year. So I would say it's safe to assume just across the board, every department is hiring. If you, like Will said, I'm going to piggyback off of that. You guys have this amazing advantage to be an Ivy Tech student and working with Dr. Lee, who's directly working with us. So Aiden, I know that we've spoke before. It's nice to see your face.
I know, it's so nice to see you.
And Elliot, you look familiar too. So it's nice to, have that connection. You can always reach out to myself. I worked with Aiden on her resume. I can help you guys to give you some points and some tips. If you guys see any positions on the website and you have questions, reach out to me with your questions. The only thing that, and I tell every job seeker this, is that We can't move forward with a candidate unless they meet all of the listed requirements in the job description. So even if maybe you meet half of it, you have to meet all of it. And that's just a compliance piece that we're held to by the federal government. So if you have questions about that, please let me know.
That's good to know. Because a lot of jobs they'll work with you on that. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a question. Actually, I've been applying for some certain position there at Caroline for quite some, like 6 months ago.
Sure.
But I applied some various kind of position, but I never had the opportunity to be called back. So I decided to move on to Cook Medicals, where I am right now. So I wish to ask, do you guys have a certain criteria or qualification that someone needs to have before kind of get recruited in your company? Because I was kind of like saying I apply basically in most positions that I believe I might have the qualification, but I wasn't reached back.
Okay. So I am actually looking at your resume right now. And I think I'm going to email you and we can set up a time to go over it and chat about different opportunities for you. Does that sound okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to email you the email addresses on your resume. So keep an eye on your email. Just for everybody to know, we love to use email. So please keep an eye on your email. I don't want you to miss anything. Check your spam folder if you think that you should be receiving something. I think it's a less intrusive way to kind of get in contact with you throughout the day. So that's probably the best opportunity. But Maxima, I will definitely reach out to you and we'll set something up, because just glancing at your resume, I have some suggestions for you. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would also say, I mean, like, you know, you're going to look on the website and you're going to kind of look for that perfect job, you know, to a point. So many people that, you know, have kind of maybe took a job that wasn't perfect, just kind of getting their foot in the door. And then in a year and a half, 2 years, you know, they've moved into that perfect role. So, I mean, like, you know, if you really want to get your foot in the door, I mean, I would say, you know, take a job in the department that you want, even if it's not perfect. And then you show them over the next year and a half, you know, kind of, you know, your performance. And if your performance is really good, then, you know, it's a no-brainer to move you into kind of a different role, you know, that might be more suited. So I've had many people do that. That's a suggestion for everyone, you know, regardless of where they go to school. So I would definitely tell this group the same.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. I mean, I think the biggest thing that I tell people is nothing is permanent. So if you come in and you're coming into a position that you may not be in love with, you know, take that time to come in and learn Catalent, meet people, get used to the shift. And then, you know, who knows, you may end up liking it. You may end up loving the people that work on that shift with you. I mean, there's so many possibilities. So, you know, I tell people, because we are a 24/7 facility, and, you know, filling that evening shift or that overnight shift isn't necessarily the easiest. So that's what I typically tell people, is that nothing is permanent. You know, this isn't going to be the position or the shift that you're in for the rest of your life. So I think just take it like anything else, learn everything you possibly can in that opportunity, and then move on from it.
I know at my job, they require you to stay in a position for 6 months before you can move, because I actually started on the floor and went to QA, QC, and now I'm in micro, but you can't move for 6 months each time you move.
Right. We do a year. Yeah. So we do 1 year because, number one, we want you to make that commitment to the hiring manager and to your team. And it takes about that much time to kind of learn Catalent, right? So you take that year to really, you know, learn what you're doing, who your people are, the cross-functional teams, who are, you know, the big names that you should be looking out for, who's your SLT, all of that really fun stuff. So we actually ask for a year commitment in each position that you're in.
Okay.
And I mean, there's exceptions to everything, right? So the only person that can really make that exception is HR. And it's got to be, you know, something that, you know, HR and both managers agree with. And of course, not affecting the business negatively.
Exactly.
So, side question. So, I'm in South Bend. So once I finish my associate here, I was planning to just transfer to IU. So since there's an IU in Bloomington, can I just like ask you guys for a job when I'm done with my degree here? Like, or do I need like a higher up or sorry?
So we don't, we do a couple different things. So we will do hiring events. So those will be interview days, and it's really like speed dating, right? So all the hiring managers meet with candidates for a half hour, go through. At the end of the day, it's like, okay, do you want to make an offer to A, B, C, D type of candidate? If you get into one of those interview days, that would be ideal. And Dr. Lee, if that's something you're interested in, we can definitely chat about that with your graduates. Other than that, you would have to formally apply on the website and go through that interview process. So it's not like we're like handing out those jobs, but again, due to compliance, you have to comply, and you have to apply for the job and allow the recruiter to take you all the way through.
Well, I'm just saying, like, are you guys gonna be like still hiring in like a few years or whatever? Because like, I'm sorry, but it's just like if I could like move to Bloomington, it takes out a chunk of like.
That's okay. That's all right. Listen, I'm in upstate New York, so I don't even know where South Bend is. So.
Well, no, because I'm trying. Oh, wait. So you're not in Bloomington?
I am not personally. No, I'm in New York.
Really?
My team is in Bloomington.
Oh.
The South Bend is a little north from Bloomington. It's close to Chicago. A little bit,
It's by Chicago, Notre Dame, that kind of area.
Yep.
Okay.
I can't believe everyone knows that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm
in Bloomington.
So in terms of a couple years, I honestly, this is my personal opinion, I don't see what we're doing slowing down. You know, looking at what's going on globally with, you know, this pandemic, I don't see things really slowing down in the next year or so. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 to 5 years. I mean, that's just me giving you a very honest answer.
Right.
I don't see, you know, us slowing down to a complete halt, but I'm sure, you know, if this doesn't get, we don't get a solution to COVID, I could see it definitely maintaining what it is.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree. I mean, like, we have an expansion project going on right now where we're putting in 3 new fill lines. I mean, that's kind of been all over the news. You know, there's definitely talks of, you know, trying to do more at some point. So, I mean, yeah, I definitely don't see it slowing down. If anything, it'll continue to accelerate into next summer. And then, you know, if we get more fill lines, you know, approval, then, you know, it'll just continue.
Okay.
Fill lines probably won't come for at least a couple more years, you know, if maybe 3 or 4 years even, I don't know. But yeah, I don't see it slowing down because the site's doing too well for them to slow down, to be honest.
Yeah. And I was also wondering, because I work at a plasma lab right now, and I do processing. So I take the plasma bottles and then I put them in the freezer or whatever. So is it kind of like that, or like, do you actually have like more brain stuff with it? Like, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit of both, right? Like, I mean, we have positions exactly like you described. They're called sample control. So they're in charge of getting the samples from manufacturing to QC. So we definitely have some of those roles. Those are really good entry-level roles to get your foot in the door.
They are though. Like, I'm almost a phlebotomist at my job here.
Yeah, exactly. So I have multiple people that have, you know, came from this Ivy Tech program, took a job in this sample control group, which is maybe a little bit less technical. And now some of them are moving into the lab, you know, as kind of a chemist essentially. So, so yeah, we definitely have those roles. And obviously we have testing type roles. So, I mean, that's probably a good path, especially with your experience.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to like know that like I could possibly go into like research and development and not be stuck in like being a cog in the machine kind of deal.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Ivy Tech has several regional campuses, and depends on our community employers partnership. Our programs develop a little differently. Bloomington obviously is built around pharmaceutical manufacturing and medical device manufacturing, but South Bend is a little different. They have, IU South Bend and then Notre Dame. So their program is focused on R&D mostly, and then transfer to a bachelor's program. So it's a little different. So anyway, can I ask a question to Heather? Maybe could you tell our students about maybe what is the best resume? What kind of format do you look for when they
Sure.
develop their resume? Yeah.
All right. So what I want to do first, I just want to give you guys a little background on myself. So I've been in recruiting for over 10 years. I started out in a not-for-profit educational program for at-risk youth, teaching them employability skills, resume writing, and really getting them educated. I don't know if you guys have heard of Job Corps, but that's where I started my career. I did that for a while. Then I went to the for-profit educational sector. And then about 8 years ago, I kind of broke ground into the biopharmaceutical world. So in terms of a resume, what do you guys think is the average time a recruiter or a hiring manager looks at a resume?
Like 30 seconds or a minute.
Yeah, probably like half a minute.
Half a minute? Okay, so we got 30 seconds. What else?
A skim. To the most, I feel like 5 minutes.
Maybe
5
Jiro
minutes?
software does it by itself.
Yeah.
Anybody else? All right. Most recruiters look at a resume for 7 to 10 seconds.
Oh.
So in that time, I'm going to tell you what we're looking for. We're looking for those keywords that we know a hiring manager wants. They're going to say, hey, Heather, don't send me a candidate unless they have A, B, or C. We are eyeballing your resume looking for A, B, and C. We're making sure that the grammar, the punctuation, the format looks great. If your resume is going to give us a headache reading it, we're probably going to pass you by. I always tell people, do not put your photo on your resume. I know that was a new up and coming thing. Keep your photo off of that. Keep those indicators of legal status, your age, ethnicity, work authorization, if you're married, if divorced, kids, all of that stuff, keep that off of your resume. I had somebody put on their resume that they were a disabled vet. Take that off of your resume. And the reason why I tell people this is because you don't want to kind of shoot yourself in the foot with, wedging yourself into this paradigm where you could possibly be discriminated against. Okay. So definitely keep that in mind. I always tell people, when you're thinking about your resume, think about it like this. Your resume is not a one and done type of document. Your resume is something that you are going to be updating every single time you apply to a job, because you are going to alter your resume to fit the job that you're applying for. So you are using this document to convince a room full of strangers that you have the skills that they're seeking and that they want to talk to you. So that's a pretty powerful 1 to 2 page document, right?
Yep.
Especially when you're applying for a job that is with a company that is overseen by the FDA. So you want to make sure that those punctuation and grammatical errors are not in your resume, that the spelling looks good, that the format is consistent. Resume it's really just not that one and done. You're definitely going to use that job description to beef up your resume to align it with the job that you're applying for. They should be easy to read, no spelling errors. It should be accurate. Keep in mind, everything on your resume is fair game. So if you're telling me on your resume you have 10 years of experience, we're going to talk about it, right? Because I want to see how relevant it is and if it's what the hiring manager is looking for. Hiring managers, they'll often use your resume as an example of how you write. So it's going to be a writing sample, which is really important in the industry. You can't send the FDA a document with spelling errors. That's not going to bode well for you or the company that you're representing. Format needs to be easy on the eyes. No objective in your resume. That kind of got phased out. Do you know what I mean by the objective part in your resume? It's really that top thing, like objective : to get a full-time job with Catalent. We know you want a full-time job. I feel like it's just one of those space fillers. So instead of that, I suggest people write a little professional summary, nothing more than maybe 3 or 4 lines. Say in that paragraph, you're going to highlight, you know, if you're a recent grad, you're probably going to highlight your soft skills. You know, that you have great customer service, you're a fast learner, you communicate well, you work well with others, you're good at problem solving, you're analytical, things like that. Those are your soft skills. If you have some experience, you can pull from things that you learned from your previous experience to put in that paragraph. So it's going to be something super easy to read, nothing too crazy, because then your resume is going to go into the rest of your experience. So yeah, that 7 to 10 seconds, it's very, very crucial that in that 7 to 10 seconds, you are really catching our attention in a positive way, highlighting your skills as it relates to that job description.
I think I had the objective on my old resume from a few years ago. I'll take
Is that helpful for everybody?
Oh yeah, I've seen some students just loading up one resume and applying for multiple jobs.
Yeah.
So that's certainly not a way to go. And yeah,
Right.
you have to
Right. And
modify
I see
every
that a
time.
lot
Yeah.
too. Like people will apply for like 25 jobs at Catalent. And I know that a lot of people may not want to talk to that candidate because like, hey, 25 jobs, what do you really want to do? Like, where is your interest? I love talking to those people that apply for all those jobs because I want to see what you're trying to do and I want to help you get there. But if you apply for a warehouse position, you can't use the same resume that you use to apply for, I don't know, an admin role or QA or QC. Like there's going to be different skill sets. They're going to be very similar, but they're also going to be very different. So you want to make it relatable.
Great suggestion. And how about the interview? And these days, maybe online interview or face-to-face interview. What kind of preparation should our students have before the interview or during the
Sure.
interview? Yeah, what questions do they need to expect?
Sure. So when you are preparing for the interview, the biggest thing that I tell all my candidates is please research the company. I tell candidates this from step one, from that screening with me going all the way in, because I think that a lot of hiring managers or many that I've chatted with, one of the first questions they're going to ask you during that interview is, what do you know about Catalent? You know, and a lot of people would be like, oh, you're a pharmaceutical company. And I get that answer all the time. And I'm like, oh, really? I was like, what else? You know, and I pry a little and I dig a little and I poke a little. And the people that did their research, they don't get aggravated with that. The people that didn't, they tend to get kind of like, why are you asking me this? Like, I just answered you. So it's really a way for us to gauge your interest. How much you research the company is going to show me how invested you are in this opportunity. So definitely research the company. Read that job description. That's another big thing. I will ask people why they're interested in this role and they don't really have a specific answer. You know, it's, oh, I just want to work for Catalent. So I'll ask them, you know, more about the job. And then finally, I'll be like, were you able to read the job description? So definitely make sure you read that and you can pinpoint what the job is. And if you don't know, because sometimes job descriptions are not the friendliest document to pull information from, ask questions. There's nothing wrong with that. Ask questions about the role, about the team size, what your average day looks like, who you're going to be working with. Why do people love this job? Why do people not love this job? I mean, I think you as the candidate, you need to do your due diligence to get all the information. So if you are offered a job, you can, you know, make an informed decision on whether or not you want to accept it. The next thing that I would definitely tell you is that you can Google anything and really do your research and be like, how do you prep for an interview? So I tell people, do that. There's your standard typical questions. I mean, we ask hiring teams not to ask them, but sometimes they do. So be prepared to answer questions like, what are you good at? What are your strengths? Or what, you know, I don't like saying weaknesses. It's very negative. So I always like to ask people like, what are you currently working on for self-improvement or self-development? You know, because we want to see that you have a plan, you have a goal, it's something that you're working towards. 9 times out of 10, people tell me I'm really bad at public speaking. So I've been working on that, which is very normal, very common. You know, a lot of people are terrified to do public speaking. So it's something that people do work on often. What is your 3-year plan, your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan? And make sure that it's reasonable. I think that a lot of times when I talk to recent grads, they're like, oh, I want to be an expert and manage people. It's like, okay, well, what's that timeline look like? Like, because we can't bring you in and have you do that on day one. So it's something that you gradually have to work towards. And if you're looking to, sprint up a ladder in your career growth, you need to have realistic expectations about what that looks like for you. And if Catalent can't do it, we would let you know that. In terms of virtual interviewing, that's what we're doing right now. We're not having anybody come on site for interviews because of the pandemic. So I like to talk to people about, the virtual, tips for interviewing. One is, making sure your camera is good, making sure that you are centered in that screen and that people aren't talking to your chin or, talking to your forehead. I mean, it's like making sure you're not like this close. So it's really just, that virtual etiquette, right? Making sure that you can see the person and they can see you, making sure that if you're sitting in front of a window like I am, that my curtain is closed, because if you don't do that and you have your curtain open, all they see is like a black silhouette of you. They don't see anything. So make sure that that is appropriate with the lighting. Another thing is speaking clearly, making sure you're not talking too fast, making sure that you're speaking loudly, that they can hear you, but you're not screaming. I always ask the person, when I'm interviewing them, hey, can you see me? Can you hear me okay? Do I need to fix the screen? Just, ask that right at the beginning. That way it's not awkward in like the middle if they're like, hey, I can't really see you, so you get that out of the way in the beginning. And then make sure, I would always test your technology and your connectivity before the actual interview, because there's nothing worse and no worse panic than trying to click on a link to interview and it doesn't work. So definitely make sure that your technology is working.
During the interview, do you ask some kind of situational questions, like given with some kind of scenario-based type, and ask them how they respond under that situation or something like that?
Yep. So we do a global interview training, and I'm actually a facilitator for that. So I teach hiring teams how to interview, and anybody that's on the panel how to interview. I teach them the TA process, and I teach them behavioral-based interviewing. So the behavioral-based interviewing is something like, tell me about a time that you had a conflict with a coworker. And they tell you, and you can pile on questions to that. You can say, okay, so thinking about it now, how would you have approached that situation now? What would you have done differently? What do you think that outcome would have been? What would have been the desired outcome? So that's a way for interviewers to really kind of stack your questions. You as the candidate, why that's helpful for you is that when you are interviewing, you should use the STAR method. So STAR stands for situation, task, action, result. That's how you as a candidate should be answering questions. You're going to talk about the situation, the task that was at hand, the action that you took, and the result of your action. That is how you accurately and thoroughly give a detailed answer to any interview question.
Yeah,
That's
and
great.
I'm here to be specific with your your answer to questions, because to be honest, I mean, I get a lot of people that just give me like a vague answer, which doesn't really help me out. Even if I pry for specifics, they kind of stick with a vague answer. So I mean, be specific, even if it's not maybe the best example. But I think just that specific situation will be that helps us out as hiring managers to evaluate you. I mean, because to be honest, anyone can probably come up with a vague answer to any question we ask, and we know that. So I mean, like this really help us out, make the interview go better.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, when I interview, when I do phone screens, you'd be amazed at some of the things people say to you and tell you. And then they, some people will be really good when I screen them, and then they'll interview with the team, and they're like, Heather, what were you thinking? I'm like, I swear that wasn't the person I sent you, the one you talked to. And then a lot of the most common feedback I get from hiring managers or interview panels is they didn't give me details. They just went surface level with what they were answering. They only said, gave me yes or no. And they really clammed up. And I think that's really what the product of that is that they got too nervous and they just clammed up. So Go in, be calm, be confident, walk that fine line between confidence and arrogance, because if you tip over one way, the hiring team is going to pick up on that. So just be yourself. That's what I tell people all the time. Be yourself. Smile when you're on this camera. Smile. See, it makes a difference. You know, nobody wants to sit there and talk to, you know, someone who's kind of not paying attention. Maybe they're looking over here. You know, stay engaged. Keep that eye contact. Smile. Ask questions. I always tell people that. Ask a couple of questions. You may meet with a panel of 6 different people. I'm going to task you with coming up with one different question for each person and bring it with you. You know, because the hiring teams, they like to see that. They like to see that you're so engaged, and don't ask questions about the benefits to the hiring panel. Don't ask about paid time off. Leave that to me. Talk to me about that. Because when you ask questions like that to the team, they're like, they only want to know about the time off. And I'm like, oh man, like,
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So yeah. So talking about the panel, keep in mind your panels can be, you can interview for maybe an hour and interview with 2 people for each 30 minutes. So you meet 4 people total. The higher level position, the more people you're going to interview with, obviously, because we want to expose you to, you know, as many people as we can and introduce you to those higher ups. But typically for your lower level, entry level, you're probably going to meet with 2 people for a half hour, if that. But again, I'm tasking you, and I'm going to follow up on with you. You have to ask some questions, you know, and if you were listening earlier, I gave you some questions to ask.
Very helpful.
Do you guys have any other questions? Feel free.
I wanted to ask a question, just piggybacking on Lydia's question. I've seen some listings for kind of internship-like programs for, I guess, college students, and I was wondering if you had information on those programs, maybe for somebody like in Lydia's position.
Sure. So actually, Dr. Lee, I just got a list today of co-ops that they're opening in Bloomington. I'll send that to you today if you want to share it with your team, with your students and team there.
Yeah, I know the internship and co-op program is ran more at the corporate level now. So when we were Cook,
Yeah.
it was much more locally ran, and we had intern fairs and things like that. But you know, it's definitely a huge kind of feeding program for full-time employees. We have multiple people that went through the internship program that are full-time employees here, and they're all fantastic, to be honest. I mean, there's only one person that we couldn't keep that actually came from the Ivy Tech program, and it's just because we didn't have any open jobs at the time when we were Cook. So, but it's a great way to kind of have a tryout, you know, to be honest. And then that person's always, you know, at the kind of in the back of our mind, like, oh, if we get a position open, this would be perfect for them. So, I mean, those programs are fantastic, kind of to get your foot in the door, I guess.
Oh, that'd be great. So, since those positions are
for question.
Oh, Maxim, you're gonna ask something?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish to know which are the programs, because I know you guys have so many programs there, so many departments and so many positions. I wish to know which kind of department that you usually need more skills there.
I think it really depends on what you're looking at. So, I mean, it really varies, right? So, QC is going to have its own skill set. QA is going to have its own skill set. Engineering will, project management, supply chain, the warehouse. I mean, it really all depends on what you're looking at. And I think the higher the level, the position, the more skill sets you're going to need. So I think the first question that I would have for you is, what do you want to do? You know, it's that simple. What do you want to do with your career? Where do you want to see it go? You know, do you want to be on the production floor? Do you not maybe want to be, you know, on your feet all day? Do you maybe want a desk job? You know, where do you want to see yourself? And I think that's the first thing that you probably need to figure out before we start talking, you know, departments and skill sets, and you're, you know, really narrowing down to the nitty gritty.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was gonna say that those co-op and internship positions, you guys need to remember that Catalent is now big. Those are corporate positions, so you may have to compete against, four-year university candidates coming from all over the U.S. So I'm not saying it's not possible, but there are pros and cons. You can apply for those permanent jobs, positions at QC or manufacturing, drug substance area, or you can apply for these co-op internship positions. But again, there are pros and cons, right?
Mhm. I think another plug that I wanted to make is the tuition reimbursement is that you guys are in school right now. And if you wanted to go on to continuing education to, advance your degree, tuition reimbursement kicks in day one. It can't be, you start one week and you have class the next week. It has to go through an approval process. It has to be degree related to the job that you're doing. So, if you're in the QC lab, we're not going to pay for your, bachelor's degree in basket weaving. It has to be something that, is relevant to what we're doing. And there is a cap on it. So I think the cap is maybe like $5,200 a year that we will spend on helping you get your degree. So that's another option. I know that if I wanted to continue, it would be really nice to have some assistance paying for that degree. So that's always something that we can help you out with as well, as long as it's approved and it goes through the chain of approvals in the system.
I know at my job, they do tuition reimbursement, but like you have to stay at the job for 2 years after you're done with the tuition reimbursement. Otherwise you have to pay it all back in 90 days. Are you guys the same?
Yep. And the reason why companies do that is that they're investing in employees. So they really want, their employees to invest back into them. So that's very important for companies to do that. The thing with that, just so you guys are aware, is that 9 times out of 10, if you do end up leaving before the 2-year mark, you may have to pay back the tuition. You also have to pay back the taxes. So it ends up being a lot of money. So just keep that in mind.
Yep.
So is there a tuition reimbursement program? So you have to pay first and then get that reimbursed?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And the amount that you get reimbursed depends on your grade.
Yep.
Oh,
Nice.
so there's different reimbursement, like A through B, it's 100% or C or whatever. Oh, okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Criteria. Yep.
It is very nice. It's beneficial for sure.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. You take one class a semester. I mean, my gosh, and an A in it, you get it paid for.
Yep.
That's what I've been doing.
That's what I've been doing too. So
Yeah. If I had the energy to go back, I would definitely.
believe me, I'm losing that energy, but I'm pushing.
I was almost there during COVID. I was like, I can't do it.
Yep. I understand. 100%.
Heather, I have a random question. What part of upstate New York are you from?
I'm in Albany.
Okay.
Nice.
My husband's from Rochester and his brother.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
I did my first 2 years of my undergrad in Rochester.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I just had to ask.
No, that's okay. I think that, as we're winding down our time here, I think, again, just the biggest thing that I can tell people, if you're going through the interview process, be yourself, smile, let your true person shine through. And I think the other big thing that I like to tell people is that if you're in an interview situation and you don't know the answer, say, I don't know. It's okay. I think it's a bit humbling. And I will tell you that a lot of our interview panel members, they're going to pick up on the babble. They're going to pick up on those words just to fill space. If you don't know, say, hey, listen, I really don't know. It's something I've always been interested in learning, but I just haven't gotten the opportunity yet. Something that simple. But we have a lot of people that, or they'll answer it and they go off on a tangent and it's not even relevant to the question. So I feel like you're doing yourself a favor if you're like, I really don't know.
Sometimes less is better, maybe.
True.
That's the point,
Elliot, did you start today?
No, my background check was taking too long, so they pushed me back a couple of weeks.
So COVID is really affecting the courts with them verifying education, employment, and criminal background. So it's taking us like a week or two more to really verify everything, because I think the people in the courts right now, they're like minimal staff. And I think Hire Right is, who is our provider, is getting slammed because more companies are starting to pick up now. So it's just so much more work with less people. So just bear with us. I apologize for that delay. That's awful.
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed when I first found out about it. But I'm pretty sure my background has like I've done the drug test already, and so I think I'm like on track to
Cool.
start on the next date they gave me, which is
Did-
December.
Did you do the COVID test?
No, not yet. I'm gonna do it. I think this Sunday is when it's supposed to be. So.
Cool. It's a saliva test, everybody. It's not the nasal, I promise.
Or they do it there at the facility?
Yeah, Bloomington. It's like a drive-through.
I have a few questions to talk about.
Sure.
So my name is Yaya, and I'm very happy to be part of this Zoom meeting. I thought it was very enlightening, very informative, very
Good.
interesting as well, very engaging to the fact as well. So I live in the state of Texas,
Mhm.
and over the course of the conversation, I've been thinking about, all right, what is in there for me, especially with that distance. So my first question will be regarding remote positions, perhaps. Maybe it's something that is happening based on the pandemic and the way most companies are actually keen into that situation. So are there something in that line of remote positions, especially if I don't live in the state of Indiana at this time?
Sure.
And maybe about my background as well, because I do have an initial background in science, but it's not something that is very, it's not something I'm looking into going further right now.
Sure.
So my background right now is focused on teaching and also training. I work as a training analyst for government health insurance here in the state of Texas, and help train and manage their systems and tools like that. So rather than working in the lab, what do you see as a career goal with your company regarding that area of more like training and management and just, tie job every day, if you get my point?
Of course. So, in terms of training positions, we do have a training department, and what they oversee is really the training for all the employees on site. So we use a program called Compliance Wire, and we are, like I said, we're regulated by the FDA. So we do have to take annual training, sometimes, semi-annual trainings to make sure that we are up to date on our skills. So the training department does oversee that. I'm not 100% sure what those qualifications are. And to be honest, I don't know what the turnover is like or headcount is like for that department. In terms of remote positions at this time, I feel like a lot of the positions that can be remote tend to be positions that you're not needed on site, you're not needed in the lab or on the production floor. But if you're going to work from home, I feel like those positions are going to need some experience in industry. I mean, Will, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like it would be tough if you're not familiar with the industry to work remotely, just out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, in QC, we actually have quite a few remote positions. So we have a team that does our investigation. So like if we get like a sample or test that's out of spec, we do an investigation into that. So a lot of those positions are remote, but they are, I guess the people live locally, so they can come into site if they need to. We're trying to have as many people offsite as possible, obviously, just to get exposure. And then I do have some
positions need experience.
Yeah, I mean those do. I mean there are some positions they're called representatives, where like we have positions that they're in charge of sending outsourced testing out, and those positions don't really take experience, and they're fully remote. So like those people never come on site.
Right.
So it just depends on what you're looking for, I think, and what your background is a little bit.
Right. And Dr. Lee, feel free to give all your students my email address. If you guys have any questions, you can certainly shoot me an email and let me know if you want to send me your resume. I could definitely do a once over with you and do it over the phone and, kind of give you some guidance on what you can improve, what to add, what to take out, stuff like that.
Certainly, I'll definitely share your email address. Yeah, this has been a fantastic, guest speeches. Yeah, with both of you, really appreciate your precious time today sharing with us. Do you guys have any questions? Final questions? Yeah, then let's thank these two guest speakers. I bet you learned a lot about your career opportunities at Catalent. All right, how to
Thank you.
develop
definitely
your resume and
appreciate it.
everything.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Yeah,
Anytime.
definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, it was very informative.
Wonderful. Well, don't be shy. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out.
I can definitely vouch for Heather's help with resume and just clarifying direction with Catalent. So
Yeah, Heather was a great help in helping me get the position I just recently got with Catalent. So
There you go.
Okay, good.
Great. All right. Again, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your time today. All right.
Yeah, thanks a lot for letting us be here.
Yeah, absolutely. We had
All
fun. Anytime you need us to come back, let us know.
Yeah,
Great,
exactly.
great. Yeah, we'll do. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Sure.
Have a good one.